Welcome to Guyana News Updates, your essential source for the latest developments across the nation. As Guyana prepares for the September 1st, 2025 general and regional elections, our channel provides comprehensive coverage of the dynamic political landscape. We'll keep you informed on the campaign trails of major parties like the People's Progressive Party Civic, PPP/C, and a Partnership for National Unity, APNU, dissecting the promises made by political leaders and highlighting calls to reject dotishness or outlandish and incredulous statements from candidates. Stay updated on the government's steadfast commitment to bridging the development divide between the hinterland and the coast, focusing on significant investments in infrastructure, energy, education, and technology in regions like Region 1. We'll also cover assertions that the PPP/C is the only truly national party, demonstrating the vision, competence, and capability to run a country. Furthermore, we address crucial discussions around electoral integrity, including concerns about alleged voter inducement practices and calls for measures like prohibiting mobile phones in polling booths to safeguard the secrecy of the vote. We also provide insights into the implications of U.S. sanctions, particularly those affecting figures like Azruddin Mohammed and the Win Party, and how this shapes local banking decisions and U.S.-Guyana relations. For insightful analysis and timely reports on these vital issues and more, make sure you're always in the know. Don't miss out on any crucial updates. Subscribe now to Guyana News Updates and hit the notification bell to stay connected to the heart of Guyana's political and developmental journey.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're navigating the pretty intricate political landscape of Guyana.
That's right. Specifically focusing on the lead up to the general and regional elections on September 1st, 2025. They're getting closer.
Yeah, they really are.
Yeah.
So our mission today, we want to try and cut through some of the rhetoric.
Exactly. We'll be sifting through statements, claims from key political figures, international bodies too.
And hopefully uncovering the core campaign narratives, looking at these debates around electoral integrity.
Which are getting quite heated.
And also the complex interplay of, international relations.
The goal really is for you to walk away with a clear, concise understanding of what's truly at stake.
And what different voices are emphasizing as this critical election approaches.
Definitely.
Okay, let's unpack this. To set the stage, we're mainly looking at, the governing People's Progressive Party Civic here in the PPPC.
Right. And the main opposition, a Partnership for National Unity, APNU.
And also a newer but pretty significant player, the We Invest in Nationhood Party, or WWIN.
So 3 main groups in focus.
Let's start with the governing party's narrative, the PPPC. What are they pushing?
Well, their campaign seems heavily centered on their track record, and future commitments.
Right. Especially infrastructure, social development, that seems key.
Yeah, they're definitely aiming to project this image of a party that delivers, gets things done.
And a big part of that strategy seems to involve showing off development in the hinterland.
Absolutely. Prime Minister Mark Phillips, speaking from Mabaruma in Region 1, really hammered home the government's commitment there.
Bridging the development divide, he called it, between those sort of remote communities and the coast.
He did, and he drew a really stark contrast between the modern roads they've built now.
Like Whitewater to Arakuru, Wana to Hosoro.
And Barabina Hill, too. He contrasted that with what he remembered from, 1982.
Just jungle and a trail, he said.
Yeah. He even made this bold statement, by the road alone, you can't vote for anybody else.
Wow. Okay, so what's the strategy behind focusing so heavily on those specific infrastructure projects?
Well, listing them out like that isn't just about showing progress. It's strategic.
Oh, so?
It directly targets those long-standing criticisms about, uneven development, that the coast gets everything.
Right.
So by highlighting specific investments in the hinterland, they mention over $67 billion in Region 1 in the last 5 years.
That's a lot.
It is. They're trying to visibly show they're committed to equitable growth across all regions, especially the ones, historically underserved.
Okay, makes sense. And it wasn't just roads, right?
No, not at all. They mentioned connecting every village to the internet.
That's huge for remote areas.
And they introduced the JGOAL Scholarship Initiative, Guyana Online Academy of Learning.
Ah, yes, allowing residents to get degrees online.
Exactly. Certificates, diplomas, bachelors, even PhDs, all from their own communities. That kind of access is, it's potentially transformative.
Yeah, no doubt. That's a significant jump in opportunity.
Yeah.
And it didn't stop there, did it?
No. They also brought 247 electricity to Mabaruma and Matthews Ridge with new generators.
And solar for off-grid areas.
Home solar systems in places like Port Kaituma, plus new ferry services for better trade and transport.
And another vessel coming soon for the Northwest Route, I think.
That's what they said. The Prime Minister wrapped it up by calling their approach a model of shared prosperity.
Citing things like increased salaries for public servants, tax-free fuel, direct cash transfers.
All part of that model.
Yeah.
And his final urging to voters was pretty clear.
Don't risk what we've built. Stay with a government that delivers for all the people of Guyana. Something like that.
Precisely. So the core insight from their campaign seems to be stability and tangible progress, heavily focused on infrastructure and social programs, should outweigh any potential risks from the opposition.
Got it. A message of demonstrable delivery. Now, building on that, President Ali also made specific promises for Region 1.
He did. If the PPPC gets reelected, he's promising that within a year, all essential government services.
Like license renewals, GRA services.
Right, all available locally, so people don't need to travel to Georgetown.
That's ambitious. And he mentioned banks, too.
Yes, establishing banks in the region to foster local businesses and generate income locally.
Okay, so this idea of localizing services, beyond just convenience, what are the sort of broader impacts they're hoping for? Economic, social?
Well, the intention seems to be spurring local economic activity, empowering communities by making government more accessible.
Right.
And on the economy, President Ali laid out a pretty comprehensive agricultural plan.
Oh, yeah. What did that include?
Expansion of coffee and cocoa, cold storage, agro-processing facilities, even a massive crab meat processing facility, and also formalizing market mechanisms for produce so farmers have a consistent buyer.
So really trying to build up the local agricultural economy. What about education?
Well, beyond GOAL, they mentioned 320 teachers being trained and new secondary schools being built in Holsororo and Quibana.
So it lines up with that broader goal of creating, self-sufficient, thriving communities.
Seems to be the idea. It's a broad focus.
Yeah, covering everything from schools to markets, even that new Indian vessel, the MV Malisha, for the Georgetown Port Kaituma route.
Right, and don't forget the social support aspect.
Yes. Carbon credit support for Amerindian villages, the Because We Care cash grant, medical assistance programs.
It all fits into that comprehensive development narrative they're building.
Then there's Dr. Ashni Singh, the finance minister. He added another layer.
He did. He emphasized the PPKC as the only truly national party, highlighting its diverse representation.
And he attributed the tsunami of support they claim they're seeing to what exactly?
To the party's demonstrated vision and the competence and the capability to run a country. That was his phrasing.
Okay, competence and capability. That's a strong claim. He also had some pretty sharp words for the opposition, APNU.
He certainly didn't mince words. He basically said, none of them ever run anything. Not one of them has ever managed anything. Not one of them has ever built anything. Pretty direct critique.
Yeah, very direct. And he dismissed opposition promises as nonsense.
Called them nonsense, designed to fool people and to insult people's intelligence. He mentioned a share-out-everything mentality he attributes to them.
So positioning the PPPT as the experienced, serious option versus, in his view, unrealistic opposition promises. What's the basis for that claim about inexperience, or, how might APNU push back?
Well, his argument is likely rooted in the PPPC's longer history in government, especially compared to the APNU coalition's time in office, and maybe pointing to recent economic growth under their current term, particularly with oil.
Right.
He then pivoted back to outlining the PPPC's own exciting vision.
More infrastructure.
Big infrastructure, yeah. New Burbis Bridge, a Quarantine River Bridge, a 4-lane highway, plus new all-weather roads for agriculture.
And job creation.
Job creation in sectors like health, tourism, education, with specific mention of benefits for Region 6.
So it's a very forward-looking, development-heavy message, positioning themselves as the only ones who can actually do it.
That seems to be the core message. Competence, vision, delivery.
Okay, that's a powerful statement of intent from the governing party. But let's shift gears. How do these big development claims stack up against concerns being raised about the election process itself?
That's where the counter-narratives come in.
Like Attorney General Nandlall's call to reject dotishness. What exactly does he mean by dotishness here?
It's a Guyanese term, basically meaning foolishness, nonsense, something intellectually insulting.
Okay.
So Nandlall is essentially urging voters to reject politicians who, in his words, insult their intelligence with lofty or unrealistic or even outlandish and incredulous promises.
And he gave an example.
He did. He specifically pointed to the APNU presidential candidate, Aubrey Norton, talking about defending against rigged elections.
And Nandlall's counter.
Nandlall argued that APNU's main constituent party, the PNC, was itself involved in rigging elections for decades. So he's highlighting perceived hypocrisy.
Right, calling out what he sees as a profound lack of self-awareness, maybe.
That seems to be the implication. He said, "This level of deceit and dotishness must be removed from our political landscape."
And he called on voters to punish such leaders at the ballot box.
Yes, while affirming, their freedom of expression, it really highlights this debate about accountability for campaign promises.
Yeah, are they realistic? Are they genuine?
Exactly. And this brings us neatly to APNU's own stance. They're focusing heavily on electoral integrity.
And specifically on alleged voter inducement, vote buying.
That's a major focus. And what's really notable is their explicit request to GCOM, the Guyana Elections Commission.
About mobile phones.
Yes, to prohibit mobile phones inside polling booths.
Why a focus on phones? What's the specific worry there?
APNU argues it's crucial to safeguard the secrecy of the vote.
How do phones threaten that?
Their concern is about bribery schemes where someone might be paid to vote a certain way, and they use their phone to take a picture of their marked ballot as proof to get the payout.
I see. The photo as proof of purchase, essentially.
Kind of, yeah. And this concern really gained traction after that video circulated online.
The one showing the Win Party leader, Azruddin Mohammed, handing out cash.
That's the one, in an indigenous community. So APNU is linking that kind of activity to the potential for ballot photo bribery.
And they criticized GCOM.
Yeah, they pointed out that GCOM warned against bribery in an August 4th statement, but didn't explicitly ban taking photos of ballots in that same statement.
Did APNU cite any specific laws?
They did. They referenced the Representation of the People Act, Section 772, about inducing electors to reveal their vote, and Section 130, which defines bribery and sets out penalties.
So they're grounding their concerns in existing electoral law. What are they asking GCOM to do?
They made recommendations, public education campaigns about these offenses, clear enforcement protocols for polling day staff, and setting up anonymous hotlines for people to report any electoral offenses they witness.
It's worth noting, I think, that GCOM did ban phones in the 2023 local government elections.
That's true. But they haven't yet announced a similar ban specifically for the 2025 general elections.
Though they have warned that photographing ballots could lead to prosecution.
Right. And GCOM has generally warned that offering or accepting inducements is a criminal offense.
With serious penalties, fines, prison time, even being disqualified from future elections?
Definitely significant deterrence. But APNU's persistence on the phone ban suggests they feel the problem is, or could be, quite severe.
Okay, so that covers the integrity debate. Now, let's turn to the international dimension. U.S. sanctions seem to be casting a shadow.
Yes, particularly impacting the Win Party.
Let's break that down. Azruddin Mohammed, the Win Party leader, he and his family, Nizar Mohammed, and their businesses were sanctioned.
Correct. Mohammed's Enterprise, Hadi's World, Team Mohammed's Racing, sanctioned by the U.S. Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control, OFAC, back on June 11th, 2024.
And the allegations were linked to gold smuggling and corruption. Former Permanent Secretary May Thomas was also sanctioned.
That's right. All part of the same OFAC action.
And the immediate consequences were pretty severe, weren't they?
Very. Business licenses revoked, bank accounts closed for the Mohammeds and May Thomas.
And then the ripple effect hit the Win Party candidates.
It did. 4 local banks, Demerara Bank, GBTI, Citizens Bank, and the New Building Society closed accounts belonging to Win Party candidates.
That's a major step for local banks to take against political candidates. Why would they do that? What was their motivation?
It seems primarily self-protection. Protecting themselves from legal and financial risks associated with handling funds linked, even indirectly, to sanctioned entities.
And safeguarding their correspondent banking relationships.
Exactly. Those relationships are vital. They're the links that allow local banks to do international business, process transactions with foreign banks.
So if those relationships are threatened by association with sanctioned individuals,
it could severely cripple the local bank's ability to operate internationally, so they acted to mitigate that risk.
Which brings us to the whole issue of perceived external interference. The U.S. Ambassador, Nicole Theriot, addressed this.
She did. She explicitly stated that the U.S. government was not involved in the local bank's decisions to close those accounts.
Characterizing it as a private sector discussion?
Yes, possibly between the local banks and their U.S. corresponding banks, but not directed by the U.S. government itself.
She also addressed the broader concerns about the U.S. interfering in Guyana's elections, right?
Yes. She defended her earlier comments, where she discussed the implications if a sanctioned individual, like Azruddin Mohammed, who's running for president,
were to actually enter parliament.
Right. She explained she was simply stating facts that U.S. law would prevent the U.S. government from interacting with such an individual.
Which would affect U.S. support for committees or initiatives that person was involved in.
Exactly. She framed it as providing factual information about the consequences of existing U.S. sanctions law.
Not as telling Guyana how to vote or who should run.
Precisely. She strongly rejected any claims of interference. She said, quote, "We have absolutely no interest in interfering in your elections."
And that she was just answering a question based on published Treasury information.
She concluded, "How you run your elections is entirely up to you."
So drawing a line between stating factual consequences of U.S. law and actually trying to influence the election's outcome. A subtle but important distinction.
It is. It underscores the complexity when international regulations intersect with domestic politics.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. We've covered quite a bit.
We have the PPPC's big push on development promises and their competence narrative.
Then APNU's strong focus on electoral integrity, critiquing promises as dotishness, and demanding measures like the phone ban.
And finally, this intricate layer of U.S. sanctions impacting the W-Win party locally, alongside the U.S. ambassador clarifying the U.S. position, trying to dispel interference claims.
It's a lot of moving parts. We've laid out the claims, the counterclaims, the international factors. Beyond the official statements, what do you think this really tells us? This sort of aggressive campaigning and intense focus on integrity. What might that suggest about the underlying mood, maybe the anxieties or aspirations of the Guyanese electorate right now?
That's a great question. It could point to a public desire for tangible results after years of, promises and potential, but also maybe a deep-seated concern about fairness and transparency in the process itself, perhaps stemming from historical experiences.
Balancing hope for development with a demand for clean politics.
It seems that way.
So for you listening, you've heard about these ambitious development plans, these strong calls for accountability and promises, deep concerns about the fairness of the process, all tangled up with international finance rules. As voters look towards September 1st, what do you think is the most critical factor for them to weigh up when they evaluate all these diverse claims and these underlying complexities?